education and knowledge is definitely the primary purpose one should go to college. For me, the larger benefit that I got out was the emotional maturity, my independence, and in combination, that really helped me discover who I was. Because before that, you're always under protection of either your parents or your teachers. But when you're independent in college and etc., it really tells you who you are, and that triggered my journey after that. I interned in Toyota for a bit, for about 3 months, graduated SSN, and then moved on to Ashok Leyland. Actually, you know what? Let me bring this slide up. I was just talking about it. I was presenting something similar for a group of graduates at Berkeley, and I'm just going to shamelessly use the same slide over here again. Give me a second. If you can you see my screen?
No, I'm not able to see it.
Hold on. Share. It's not working. Okay. No, all good. What I'll do, Krishna, is I'll send you the slide and have a few more slides. Perhaps you can present it on the side while I talk. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me just do that. Give me a second. But yeah, while I do that in the background, yeah, like I said, I interned in Toyota, moved on to Ashok Leyland thanks to SSN again. It was an automotive engineering, as you might know, but it was something that really didn't strike the chord with me. I thought core engineering was what I really wanted to do and pursue. But I remember when I was in this remote town of Pantnagar, and as part of my assignment at the Ashok Leyland, it was about 2 a.m, and I was under a truck trying to figure out why this new truck that Ashok Leyland is designing, the suspension's not working. There was like grease all over me and this and that. And, I asked myself, man, my life can be better. It should be better. That was the chord that struck.
Suneesh, sorry to interrupt, but I think you should be able to share now. Can you try?
Okay, give me a second. Recording. No, I don't think so. It says only meeting organizers and presenters can share. You can do it. I'll send it to you on WhatsApp if you got it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But anyway, what I was getting at was Ashok Leyland was kind of the pivotal point for me. I learned that there was something better for me, and that's when the big decision to like, hey, maybe I should think about options abroad came to me. And then, things happened pretty quickly. I moved to Berkeley, pivoted from mechanical engineering to applied mathematics. I went to operations research. And that really opened up the world for me. I think, seeing people from all over the world with insane smartness and intelligence, it intimidates you to a certain extent. But then you find home eventually. But again, after Berkeley, I worked in a couple of firms, a semiconductor firm, and then a manufacturing firm, eventually leading me to Apple, where I now run supply chains, or my teams run supply chain for multiple products. And recently, we launched the Apple Vision Pro. If you guys heard about that, I'm quite proud of it. Been working on that for 3 years. It's probably the most advanced tech, short of the rockets that SpaceX makes, that California has produced in the last few years. So yeah, it's been incredible that way. But along the way, I learned, I got bruised, and I discovered, and I'll probably go through this towards the end, but everyone has their own unique journey. I used to compare a lot to my peers, to people who graduated before me, full of jealousy or admiration and inspiration. But I realized that, it is, you go on your own journey, and, that when the time is right, things happen. I know it's hard to comprehend that at your young age, but you'll eventually realize that over time. But yeah, that's been my journey in a nutshell.
Yeah, really sorry, I haven't been able to open the file. Is it okay?
You're okay. Don't worry about it. I'll try and see if I can export that to a PDF and send it to you.
I'm trying to make you a presenter. Like, can you try now? it says.
Sure. Let me try it. Give me a second. Does it work?
Oh yeah, it's working now.
Can you see my screen or just the
Yeah, we
Safari?
can see.
You can see the career journey.
No, we can see a clean screen right now.
Hold on. Man, you guys should not work with Microsoft products. That's a plug there. Give me a second.
Yeah.
My screen. Is it working?
I don't see anything right now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not. Hold on. Yeah, it's not working. What I'll do with the Krishna is I'll basically convert it into a PDF and send it to you. Maybe that'll work.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, we can continue talking while I do all this.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah. So you talked about your switch, how you went from mechanical to applied mathematics, right? Like, did you always know that? Did you know as soon as you stepped into mechanical engineering that you want to switch? And how easy was it to make that switch in your career?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I for sure did not know this is where I wanted to be, and I think if you are at this age very sure of what you want to do, kudos to you. And I think just want to acknowledge that it's a Saturday evening for you guys at 8 o'clock or past 8, and if you guys are here, there is something about you that is inspirational to me. When I was in college at 8 o'clock on Saturday, you will not find me talking to seniors, trying to get understanding of how to progress my career and whatnot. So kudos to you guys. And I think it speaks a lot that maybe you guys are in a much better place, more informed place of what you want to do. But it wasn't the case for me. For the large part, I was living in a very micro universe of SSN. And what people told me was good was good. Only when I got out of SSN did the world open up. And that's going to be a piece of advice for you as well, is that when you are in SSN, which is fantastic, you learn, you absorb all you can, but always stay in the touch on what's going on outside, be it industry, be it your alums who are working in different companies, or just friends in different colleges. Doesn't even have to be engineering colleges, could be other colleges as well. Because they have very different views, they have very different ambitions, and you always want to get a sense of what the pulse is going on around you. That happened to me when I left SSN. And I went to Ashok Clayton, like I said, and I discovered that mechanical engineering, while is amazing, it was not my cup of tea. I was more a coffee guy. Hence, I switched to applied math, and like you said, it was hard. We do study some form of math while we do mechanical engineering, but these guys expected something at a whole different level. And there was a period of 3 or 4 months where I had to upskill myself on my own, watching YouTube videos and Khan Academy or whatever it is, to understand what I should be knowing before I entered this new world. So it was difficult, but it was not impossible.
Okay, thank you for that response. You enlightened me. So let's move on to the study abroad specific questions. So a common dilemma that students face is which country do I apply to and which program? So do you have any tips for students about like how do they select the right country and program? And what factors do you think they should prioritize while making this decision?
Yeah, actually, that's a question I get a lot from my friends and my acquaintances back in India. I also, for the last 10 or so years, have been helping a lot of students who are graduating with their SOPs and strategies, this and that. So it's a big question. And I wish I could have shared my screen because I did have something which would be relevant. I'm going to try one more time, and if it doesn't work, I'll just use my voice notes. See. I guess this is a lesson for all of us to use more non-Microsoft items. Anyway, it's not working, but it's fine. I will talk to it. I think there are two main questions, right? Hey, which program do I choose? And then you go to, okay, once I have a sense of which program, which country do I choose? And what are the factors that determine the country that you need to be at. The first things first, everyone who's in the 4 years, I'm assuming everybody here is in engineering, right? On this group. Is there anyone who's non-engineering here? I doubt that. Okay, cool. So usually there are 3 or 4 paths for engineers, right? One is, typical, let's do an MBA, which, as you know, is more business finance focused. Or there is an MS, which is a very popular degree, which is call it an advanced form of a bachelor's degree. There's this other degree called Masters in Engineering, or MEng, which is more of a professional master's, where MS is more focused on research and thesis. MEng is a lot more focused on how do I apply some of these skills in real life. So that's the third. And then the final obvious option is PhD. It's a very popular option, but usually there are more prerequisites to a PhD than some of the others. Often, you require a master's or a very strong research background to get into a PhD. So I'll send the document to you, Krishna, offline, and maybe the people can, students can look at it later. I have laid out kind of, what the pros and cons are and what typical careers are. But in a nutshell, MBA is for someone who wants to get into business or consulting or banking, but be wary that an MBA degree, especially abroad, is expensive, and the scholarships are not very popular because they expect people who have work to come into these things. MS, on the other side, you have plenty of funding available. You don't have as much prerequisite. Usually good MBA schools require work experience. Masters and MS don't have that requirement. And the typical career that you usually have after MS is, you're an engineer or like a software engineer or industrial engineer, product manager. You get into research or academia and things like that. Then there is MEng. The one big distinction between MEng and MBA and MS is that MEng tends to be a shorter degree. Maybe a year and a half. So someone who's cost conscious, lesser time studying abroad in a university is obviously lesser burden on your pocket. So that's important. And then the other thing is you do typically get similar roles in an MEng that you get out of MS. Maybe a little different, meaning MEng usually is more engineering and leadership in a way. So you get into roles like technical leadership, business engineering, basically with the focus of how do you apply. Oh, thank you, Krishna. How do you apply a lot of those technical things that you've learned in real life? How can you monetize that? Or how can you accelerate some technology? So you're kind of a confluence of business and engineering. And finally, PhD, as you know, is usually fully funded, but it takes a lot longer. And the avenues after PhD are typically academia. I have friends who've done PhD and gone on to work for Facebook and Amazon as scientists. And some have joined companies like SpaceX, doing very specialized, focused engineering roles, often as something as remote as, fluid dynamics in sub-zero temperatures, like something as focused as that. But yeah, high level, those are the differences. So as you kind of look at, what your pursuits are, you want to start putting them in the horizon of what I want to do and what constraints might I have. Do I have 2 years? Do I have 6 years? Am I worried about funding? What kind of career do I want after my MS or my degree? So that think of it along those lines and take a decision. But the next thing you asked, Krishna, was where do I do it? So if you go to the next slide for me, the next slide would talk about and where, right? So usually, I've listed a few things here. On the left, you'll see some of the factors or the decision-making variables that go into making a decision of where I go. It's an important decision. And on the right, or in the columns, you'll see the different geographies I've listed. The US and Germany tend to be extremely popular. So I've listed those, and I've also listed India as a comparison because that's important. You guys are in India, and a lot of things in India can be at no cost or low cost compared to US and Germany. But high level, and I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but high level, the 2 or 3 key things that you want to gauge before you make a decision is alignment with goals. I think that's important. From what you know today as in SSN, and as you talk to me and other alumni, and maybe you have affiliates and acquaintances who are already in these countries, what are your long-term aspirations? I know you may not be clear on that right now, but you want to be able to get a gut feeling that, hey, I'm better at math, or I'm good at business, or I think I'm good at talking, I'm good at explaining, I want to be a consultant. So you really want to soul search and ask that question as early as possible. But that will truly tell you like which country, which geography is a little bit more aligned. If you're really passionate about AI and or software engineering, Silicon Valley obviously is a place to be. So US may be a bit more tuned to that. Germany is extremely strong in manufacturing, especially precision manufacturing, really strong in engineering, really strong in clean energy. So if you're passionate about the climate, green tech, Germany or Europe might be an option. And India is obviously an option as well. It's an established leader for IT. The manufacturing sector has seen massive investment. And as you might have heard, the startup economy is just on the rise there. So India also, again, depending on what you want to do, like let's say you want to open your own company at the end of 5 years, India might be a very low cost, efficient option in that sense. The other key factors, and I'll list them really quickly. Cost and funding. US tends to be quite expensive. Germany has little to no tuition fees, and obviously India is free of cost, or rather cheaper than these two. Language is important. Germany does have a requirement of you needing to be a German speaker for the most part, so that's something you want to be wary about. Job opportunities tend to be similar in USA and Germany. In Germany being more engineering focused, US being engineering and business focused, so you have that option. And the one important thing is visa, because it's something people don't think about a lot before going in. But once you do graduate, it is very hard. I don't want to lie about it. It is hard in the US to get a working visa and then keep that working visa active to finally convert it into PR. It's extremely long and arduous process. Now, it's not impossible. A lot of people do it, but it's just psychologically challenging. There's a lot of paperwork. There is a factor of luck involved. So you want to come in prepared that there are people who have come in and left the US because the visa wasn't available. But there are a lot of good companies in the US who will send you abroad to like London or Germany for a year or two and bring you back on a different visa. So there are options like that, but I don't want to I don't want to hide the truth. In the US, immigration is a big hot topic in the election. That's happening, and getting visas is hard. Germany, on the other hand, is a lot more favorable. You do get like a work visa where you can even look for a job for 18 months without actually working, which is not the case in the US. You have to have always a job for you to have a visa. Germany gives you a little bit more leeway, and getting a PR is much faster as well. But one of the biggest factors that I saw back in the day was the economy, and I think that's where you go to the next page is. You want to think more macro, because I wasn't planning to come to the US for a year or two. I was like, okay, I know that the economy in the US is on the boom. It's on the rise. It has been on the rise. The purchasing power of the dollar has been, the hallmark of the US. So do I want to go there or different geography? So the economy is very important. So if you look at just the top 3 rows, you'll see that the US is continuing to grow at roughly about 1.8%. They will get to 37 trillion in 2040 by the time you guys are in your mid-career. Germany, on the other hand, I want to make sure you saw this, is not growing that fast against a baseline of 4.3. So it's only going to see about a 40% growth. Whereas India, as you see, and this is why I wanted to show you the fact, is going to grow 4 to 6% a year, and is going to see almost a 7x increase from where we are right now. And the main reason for that is you guys. As you look at the population and demographics in USA and Germany, it's a lot more aging population. It's a shrinking workforce. Whereas India, it's the complete opposite. If you look at the population median, younger people are going to be the most dominant portion of the population in India for the next 30 to 40 years. And that is important because a lot of money is going to flow into India to take advantage and leverage that youth. Whereas countries like India, US, and Germany are going to see capital decrease. Not to say that they're not going to grow, it's just that the pace at which they're going to grow is going to be very different. And I always tell people in my team and in my companies before, think of yourself as a stock, right? You might have seen in the stock market. you want to see the most steep curve increase in your value. Um, and that at the moment, if I could draw that parallel, in the US, you're going to have a good steady growth to a certain extent. Germany is going to be much slower, but India is going to be on an exponential curve. So India is honestly not a bad option to stay in if your values align with what India has to offer. Especially in the startup ecosystem, the data science, AI ecosystem, there are a lot of opportunities in India. So I didn't want to call that out here, not to discourage anyone to not go to the US or Germany, but India definitely is ripe for a lot of capital to flow in the next, I want to say 10 to 20 years. Like companies like Apple, Tesla are all investing in India for the exact same reason.
That's great. Thank you for that economic comparison. 'Cause I'm sure a lot of students would not have checked that out before. So that's something new for most of us, I think. So moving on, like as you mentioned, English is king in the US and also countries like the UK. So what would you suggest as like key strategies for preparing for exams such as GRE, TOEFL, and IELTS? And when is the ideal time to take these tests?
Yeah, I think again, because I consult with a lot of students, I have my own timeline for them. If you go to the next page, this is something I hand out to, well, this is, if you go to the page after this is more about scholarships and funding, but the page after this should be, yeah, there you go. So standardized tests are not uncommon. You guys are used to it. You've probably done your AIEEE or IIT, or now they're all one test, I think. You've done your board exams. So standardized tests should not be any alien to you guys. Unfortunately, that doesn't stop after college, as much as I'd like it to stop. But you do have a few tests like GMAT for MBA, GRE for your MS and MEng. And then for English literacy, you have things like TOEFL or IELTS. And Germany, I believe, has their own set of language requirements like A1, B1 levels. Now, this is just a, call it a model timeline. I want to honestly say I did not follow this timeline. I was not aware that it was this intensive a process. So for me, all this happened in the span of like 4 months. But since I learned my lesson that it took a toll on me, I tell people to be a little bit more prepared. So this is more, as I learned over the years, what mistakes I did, this is what I recommend people to do. I want to say you want to start by targeting when you want to go abroad. So, usually admissions happen in the spring or fall. Fall meaning the month of September, spring meaning the month of Jan or Feb. And usually fall is the more popular semester that people come in. So let's say you want to go into the fall of 2026. So what this tells you is that 18 months, 12 to a year or a year and a half before fall of 2026, you want to start your research. You want to start your prep. You want to explore, like I said, those values, right? Align your goals where they are. Where do you see, more growth over the next 5 to 10 years? Which course I want to do? Which universities align to those courses? Because every university has their strengths. So you want to look at this university aligns to my strengths. This professor in this university has been researching on this topic that I'm really passionate about. You want to get to that level of depth because those factors can be included in your statement of purpose, for example, and they do give you extra brownie points. In terms of standardized tests, to your point early on, about 12 months before you actually go abroad is when I'd recommend you want to register and start prep. The prep can be different for everyone. Everyone has their own learning curve. I want to say maybe 3 to 4 months of prep would be ideal, but people can take longer. But you want to take your test roughly about 10 to 12 months before your actual exit from the country. In terms of the next steps, again, 8 to 9 months out, you get into your application prep, get into your statement of purposes, LORs. It takes a month or two to do that. And this is important, 6 to 8 months out, scholarship and financial aid. A lot of times universities have early deadlines for funding and scholarship, sometimes even before the actual college application. So you want to target and understand, and I'll pass out some links to you guys on specific scholarship schemes. Every university has their own, but there are other non-university scholarship schemes that do help students who are going to Germany and the US. Even some are available in India. But those deadlines tend to happen a lot earlier, so you want to get this portion done as soon as possible. And then 5 to 6 months out, applications go through. At times, universities require to do interviews 3 to 4 months out, which are pretty standard questions. And then, visa prep, depending on which country you go to, takes time. And then obviously travel. In terms of strategies to prep for some of these tests, given you guys are all engineers or going to be engineers, math should not be hard. These are very fundamental, basic questions. English and critical thinking is where we usually struggle. The Indian education system does not, always call it accelerate critical thinking. So that's where I believe you want to spend a little bit more of a time and take a lot of mock exams. It's something very cliche, very basic, but if you take like 20 mock exams, that gets you a pulse and a pace of what you're going to expect at the end when you actually do the test. And usually mock exams are much harder than the actual test. So the more harder you are on yourself early on, the better results, what I've seen. But again, hey, a lot of my friends did the exam 12 months out, did not like the score they had. They studied for a couple more months and took the test again, which again is completely okay. So I want to make sure you guys understand that taking the test again is completely okay. No one looks down upon it or any of that stuff. But yeah, this is your typical timeline and some basic strategies for the prep.
Thank you for that. That's a really well planned out timeline. I hope the people here can stick to it. So you mentioned scholarships. Can you share some advice on securing those scholarships and how exactly do you manage the financial aspects of studying abroad? And you also mentioned some lesser known funding opportunities. Could you elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, go to the previous slide. I think it's the money slide. I mean, this is one thing that everybody is always interested in. The ROI of studying abroad. And I want to spend a minute on the ROI aspect before I get into the scholarships, because scholarship is one variable in the ROI. ROI meaning return on investment. If you think of yourself as a business or as an investment, you want to put enough money into you, enough investment into you for a reasonable amount of time, so that for a reasonable amount of time, so that you can get returns in 3, 5, 10, whatever your timeline may be. And it is something that it's different for everyone. And to the point where I thought that for me, I don't want to invest for more than 1 year, because I thought that the money that I would make after I graduate would, I would make up that money that I invested in myself in 4 or 5 years. So everyone is uniquely placed because everyone has different economic backgrounds. So you want to ask yourself, how much time do I want to give myself to recoup the investment that I'm going to make in myself? I said 4 to 5 years. Some people have a shorter timeline of 2 years. Some are saying, you know what, I'm okay waiting 10 years to start breaking even. And scholarship is a big variable in that, because the main investment that goes in is the cost to actually fund that education. And as I've said before, the funding really varies on which program you choose, which country you're in, and even within the country, which university you go to, right? If you have a scholarship, that obviously shortens your ROI timeline, because a part of the funding is now given by somebody else who believes in you. So if you look at the different categories on the left, there's obviously some standard academic scholarships that every college has on their own. So you want to actually go into the college website, again, 12 to 18 months out before you actually go, and research. Some departments have their own unique funding. Some have college level scholarships. So you want to actually go into each college's website. I have listed a couple of links for a scholarship portal that basically does this job for you. It scavenges the web for different universities, the scholarships they offer, and makes a very pretty list. So that's useful. There are other private funds like World Bank that also do scholarships specifically for these reasons. So those are quite standard. The next category is part-time. This is one of very popular things that happens usually in the MS category, where given it's a research-based master's, a lot of professors look for RAs and TAs, or research assistants and teaching assistants. And what the professors do in return is pay for your tuition and living expense. So that's a great option. I know a lot of students, especially from India and Asia, tend to gravitate towards this because this is something that can happen later on. You don't have to apply for this 12 months out. You can apply for when you know you've gotten to university, maybe 3 months out, you can start contacting professors for it. So this requires the least amount of prep ahead, essentially. Then there is this category called, it's kind of unique, diversity dependent. Like you have your leadership scholarships, you have women in tech scholarships. If you have community service experience, you have scholarships for those. So depending on your unique profile, you got to ask yourself, what are my strengths? What have I done? For me, I thought, okay, maybe sports, since I've done a lot of it, maybe I could apply for that. Again, it depends on which kind of unique, skill you have. So you can kind of think, again, I've listed a few options there, but these are very specialized ones, and you have to have something really stand out in your profile, specifically non-academic, that one can leverage. Then there are some lesser known scholarships, Fulbright, Erasmus. These tend to only be if you actually open the embassy websites and go to the government websites or for Department of Education, for example, or let's say the U.S. Embassy in Delhi or Calcutta or Chennai. They would have links to many of these. So this requires a lot more research because they're not very popular. But there are avenues available in the government websites and embassies, and I've listed one example there for Europe. But I don't want to discount the fact that India actually has a ton of scholarships available for students who want to study abroad. I've only listed like 10% here, but if you go to that Buddy for Study website, you'll probably be able to see like about 100, 150 options like that. Like Fulbright Nehru, there is this Lady Mehribai Tata Education Trust Scholarship. I know a lot of people who have gotten this. Now, these may not be as popular as the university scholarship schemes, but they exist, and you will be surprised that they actually don't have that many applicants, just because they're not very well known. So again, you want to actually leverage some of these available. You don't always have to look outside. India itself offers a lot of these options. So think about all this, see what, which category kind of suits you, and feel free to peruse links, and I'm happy to answer questions after you've kind of done that research.
Thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of us wouldn't be familiar that India had so many scholarships, funding options before. So thank you for putting all those links there. And yeah, so you had mentioned before that you're a squash player, and a lot of students, they wonder how much importance do universities give to extracurriculars, and what exactly counts as a strong application? Is it their internships, projects? And this is just specifically for those who are in a technical or engineering background. What do you think can make them stand out?
That's a good question. I actually was on Berkeley's admission committee for about 5-6 years. So I did get to read a lot of SOPs, the LORs, resumes. And I'll tell you this, there's no one magic formula. There's not an equation that I can tell you, you have 10% of this, 20% of this, 13% of that, and you'll have this magic answer to an admission in Stanford or Berkeley or MIT. I'm going to be very honest with you. There's no right answer here. It's the most cliche consulting answer that it depends. But what I can suggest is a few things that are seen broadly in successful profiles that one can try to mimic or replicate. But again, I'm going to go back to the first thing I said is everyone has their own unique journey. And the only way for you to truly have a successful application is by actually trying to embellish things that you think are unique about yourself. And if you feel like, hey, you know what, I am like everybody else, I have nothing unique, you will be surprised. You just have to look deep enough. Like I when I was at SSN, was also like, okay, I have done some sports, I get it. But for a technical degree, like a master's, people don't really care that much if you've played sports. So what else is in me that stands out? Then I figured and went back and like, let me think about my journey a little bit. I was born in a time when there was a big exodus from Kashmir. My parents were emigrated for terrorist reasons from Kashmir to a new geography, and my start of my life was quite I want to say bumpy. And I was like, okay, is that something maybe I don't think about actively now, but it did play a big part in, where I am today, how I got where I was, my psychological mind frame. And now, you know what? Let me think about how I can, weave that into my application, how I can leverage that and say, hey, you know what? I've come from humble beginnings, bumpy beginnings, and you see where I am right now. I've played sports, I've gotten scholarships, this and that, and that's what makes me a strong candidate. Now, again, this was my own unique journey. I'm sure if you look deep within yourself, you will find that unique thread that you could weave. And I think that is what one looks for, that unique thread that one has to weave through their application, which would stand them out. The best candidates that I've seen resonate that thread through every single aspect of their application. And I think that's what makes them stand out. Now, again, this is very arbitrary, and I've given you a very general answer. But truly, that is what the people who I look at the application, I'm like, yeah, this person is it. Have that in them. Now, again, it is a exploration, self-reflection, introspective kind of answer. And I encourage everyone to do that. But beyond that, right, once you step away from just, hey, introspecting, what are some specific things, to your point, Krishna, that one looks for, is extracurriculars. It is important because, especially in the US, even if you are looking for a technical degree like MS or MEng, and especially if you're looking for a business intensive degree like an MBA, they don't want cookie cutter engineers. They don't want cookie cutter people who have just focused on academia, gotten 4.0 GPA, 10 GPA, have academic scholarships, and that's all. They look for wholesome candidates, because a very important criteria in universities judging candidates is their own diversity. Because university also is a business, and they get judged by external companies and factors and firms for a lot of variables, one of which including is the diversity of your students. And by diversity, I don't just mean that, hey, you're from Taiwan and I'm from India and someone's from Sweden. By diversity, I mean holistic, personality diversity. There is this person who's come from the village of Kenya, or there is this person who used to be in a kangaroo farm in Australia. Or I met somebody who used to be a research assistant for a Nobel laureate. So universities look for those unique personalities, and they think of themselves as this common ground where they can bring those personalities. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
You guys are bored with me already. I thought we'd spend a little bit more time together. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'll quickly wrap this piece up, but universities tend to think of themselves as a platform to bring all these unique personalities together. And diversity is your best friend. How do you show that you're diverse? Is by, at least in India, by extracurriculars, non-academic endeavors, community service, leadership activities, anything that makes you not boring, for the lack of better words, because everybody and anybody has education, right? It's unfortunately, in the competitive world we live in, is the basic requirement. You have a 3.5 or 9 GPA or 8 GPA is understood. You have a high GRE score. Those are now prerequisites. People start, if you're really looking at the cutting edge universities, you want to start thinking beyond that. And I don't know the demographic of people here, which year they're in, but the sooner you start to develop that personality, that uniqueness, that diversity in you, the better. I have friends who were in the same batch as me in India, who went to villages to set up solar farms because they thought it was fun. They didn't realize that aspect in their profile is going to be so important that they would get admitted to Stanford. So there are these small things that you don't know may have a big impact, but think along those lines. Don't just think academia. Don't just think I need to publish a paper. those things are fine. Those are important. But now start thinking beyond that. If you're really looking to get into something, cutting edge like an MIT or Berkeley or Stanford.
So thank you for that new perspective on things. Haven't heard that one before. So thank you for that. Now we'll be opening to questions about study abroad. If anyone has any questions, you can ask right now.
Krishna, do you mind reading the questions? I can't seem to figure out.
Yeah, sure. The question says, since you are currently in the US, what is the probability for anyone doing their masters outside US, like Europe or Australia, to get work opportunities in the US, and how does the process behind it look on a rough scale?
So if I got that, if maybe you want to repeat for me, you're saying someone who's done the masters in Europe who wants a job in the US? Is that how it is?
Yeah, someone who did their masters outside US, how exactly do they get work opportunities in the US, and how is the process?
Got it.
What's the probability of that happening in the US?
Got it. Very frankly speaking, it is possible, but I want to say, in my judgment, probably 5 to 10% chance of doing it. Main reason is the work visa, which like I said, in the US tends to be quite hard. So what you're basically saying is that the companies who are in the US, let's say Apple or a Facebook or whatever it is, wants to hire you from a different country as opposed to looking at talent that they already have in the country. There's already an insane amount of competition in the US for these jobs. And them having to look beyond that to you, to a different country to bring you in, is seemingly very difficult. However, it's not impossible. And the route people have taken to do it is quite simply working in geographies where these jobs, let's say an Apple or a Facebook or whatever it is, have offices abroad. And they tend to have offices everywhere. Like it could be London, Germany, Australia even. And if you work in that company for maybe a year, 2, 3 years, you show them that you are an important, integral part of the team, then you can apply for a change in geography from the company. And that tends to be a much easier, more streamlined path than you just graduating from an engineering university in Germany and saying that I want a job in Silicon Valley. That would be very difficult. But if you work for a company in Germany that has an office in the US, that I would advise that would be a better path. Hopefully that answers the question.
Any other questions? You can type it in the chat or you can just unmute and talk. That will be fine. Okay, I think there was a doubt before, but it's more about jobs, I think. So I think we can move on to the career development segment. So yeah, so I'd say the major difference between getting jobs here and there is that for us in India we have placements right at the end of our college, so it's a lot easier. You don't have to go out seek connections really to get a job. So I'd like to ask, how important is networking for career development, especially when you're studying abroad, and what steps can students take to build meaningful professional connections?
Networking is the most important part of your, not just job, in your life. It will help you not just in your academia and your jobs, but it will help you pursue personal pursuits beyond life. I found my wife by networking. I'm not kidding. So it is the most important thing. And the most important piece of advice that I want to give for someone who's trying to network is be shameless. I'm going to say that again. Be shameless. People who are relentless, who will keep pursuing you day on day with some quality questions or quality content, will definitely get what they want at the end. It may not be the first try, second try, but I'm fortunate to be in a position where I do get requests from people who want to network with me. And just given how busy people are at my level or even a senior level, if you haven't asked me the question, unfortunately, 3 or 4 times, I may not look at it. Be shameless. I think that is the most important aspect of it. And I'll tie that to the first thing you said. You're right that in India, we have placements where companies come to you and you study or you do your aptitude tests and whatnot, and you get a job. US is similar. I don't have experience in Germany because I have never been there, but the US is sort of similar where you have something called career fairs where a lot of companies, depending on which university you are in, come for a few days of a year, and they talk about what they do and the jobs they have to offer. And then but the onus is on you to go and present yourself as a strong candidate, hand your resume, network, talk, and eventually, if you are impressive enough, they will call you for an interview. So it's not as easy as just giving an aptitude test. It does require a lot more effort, but companies do come to campus. But that also is only a portion of, or a percentage of jobs that you would get through career fairs. End of the day, as it sounds as basic, networking and finding avenues beyond your university is how most people do get their jobs. And what that means is, talking to alumni like me, talking to people who are, friends and family, for example, but even going to a lot of these, tech discussions, panels, seminars, you get to meet very interesting people. And when you meet interesting people, you want to make an impression, you want to make an impact. And that means doing the extra hard work, which is, as an example, what you are doing here today. Like you wouldn't catch me, at the end, 8, 9 p.m. on a Saturday, listening to some old guy like me talk about life, but you are doing it. So you're already kind of in the direction. Keep that spark up. I think being uncomfortable like this, going through some amount of pain like this, all through your journey, especially networking, will get you the reward. But it takes persistence. It takes relentless shame over time, but you will get to a point where it'll become natural, where it'll become organic. And till that time, keep at it. But I cannot stress enough, Krishna, that networking is the most important aspect, not just in the US, not in Germany, but I would say even in India or anywhere else, for you to have a successful, happy life. I think Krishna has hung.
Hello. I think I got cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was saying that it's something common here. Like people get an internship and they get absorbed into a job. So I just wanted to ask, is that possible abroad as well? And how do you have any advice for students? How do they find an internship that aligns with their long-term goals?
It is quite common. If you are in a 1 year plus course, like a 1.5 years or 2 years or 6 years, if you're doing PhD, it is quite common for you to get internships. And if you are good and successful there, for you to convert that into a placement offer. The way to get an internship, again, 60-70% of the time is networking and referrals. Referrals is something that is not very popular in India, but it's quite popular in the US, which is many of these companies, big companies, small companies, rely on their own employees to go and find talent. This is not HR I'm talking about. This is like me sitting here and saying, hey, you know what? This person who reached out to me on LinkedIn, or this person who I spoke to in this panel, or this person I met in a seminar talking at SSN was very impressive. Their questions were quite astute. Their profile is strong. And I think they're a good candidate for this role that I'm hiring for, or Apple's hiring for. And that would make me go and talk to HR or refer that person internally. And I think those referrals carry a lot more weight than anyone applying online without that. So referrals, getting referrals is really important. But how do you get referrals? Unfortunately or fortunately, if you are strong, is networking, is being shameless, is being trying to market yourself in the most enterprising way possible. And I think that's where the focus need to be. Learn how to market yourself. Learn how to humble brag. I know in India, as a culture, we tend to be, or at least we are taught to be humble. We're taught to be more self-reflective. But you come to a country like US or Germany, you have to stand out. You have to market yourself in a way that you're still humble, but you're bragging a little bit. So learning that art, learning that skill is really important. But there are different ways of marketing yourself. Having a strong LinkedIn profile, having maybe something outside of LinkedIn, like a portfolio for specific, jobs. Like people have GitHub for things about software. People who have get into architecture have portfolios of their designs, et cetera, et cetera. But you need to be able to market yourself. The more you learn how to do that successfully, that will unlock internship, full-time, whatnot opportunities.
Okay, that's great. And you've been mentioning throughout some pretty stark differences between India and the US, right? Like with regards to the culture and everything. So about the academic and work culture, what do you have any tips for students to adapt to them when they move abroad? And personally, what were some of the cultural adjustments you had to make when you moved?
Could you repeat that, Krishna? I got the cultural adjustment piece, but what was the first part of the question?
Yeah, the first one was about the difference in academic and work cultures between India and like other countries. How can students adapt to those when they move?
Yeah,
And I also asked about your personal any
yes,
experiences
yes.
you have.
I'll split that. The academic culture is very different in the US. Again, I can't speak for Germany. I never studied there, but there is, especially when you get to master's level, I'm not talking undergrad because I don't think anybody here is going to go to undergrad again. The professors and the university expect you to be very independent here. They will give you all the resources you need. They will have lectures about touching on topics, but they expect you to do your own research, your own homework a lot of time. Think of it as in India, they will give you the tools, they will teach you how to use those tools, they will then practice with you on making the final whatever good that you're making, polish it, finish it, and then in the exam, you basically get a question where it's the same thing. What was your process? In the US, they will give you the tools, they will tell you what the end result is. They may talk about high level how to get there, but it's on you through your own research, through homework, through extra projects to actually figure out how to do it well. So that was a big difference. I expected to be spoon fed a lot of information. I expected when I came here that I would have to read A, B, C, and D book and I would learn everything, but that's not how it is. They give you a general curriculum. They give you some basic insights into where your focus should be. The lectures would be partially specific to topics, but then the exam or the project that you do could be a tangential, could be something very different from what you studied. Because one big difference, and I can't stress this enough, between India and the US is India is very theoretical in its education, in its exams. The US is a lot more application based. So they're not trying to test if you can remember the formula. They're trying to test can you solve a problem, a real life problem, using what you have learned and understood in that theory. So it's very different. There's a lot more open book tests here. Because end of the day, when you are doing a job or research, you're not going to be doing it without the help of a book or online resources. The point is, can you solve a problem, learning the fundamentals? And that's what they really test here. So it's a very big difference in academia or in universities here. And you want to make sure you adjust to that, getting more independent, getting more self-reliant in a lot of cases. That's one. And then looking at the work culture, again, I'll go back to not just work culture, but the culture of the people itself. India, again, tends to be polite. They tend to beat around the bush if they want to make us, a point which is controversial. They tend to be more quieter, at least in my experience in working with Indians in my company. In the US, it's a lot more straightforward. They don't like to waste time trying to be polite. It's very straightforward. It is, get to the point. Let's move on. Let's figure out a way to get to the end result. So there is that difference. India does tend to be a lot lax in some of this, but the US it's not as lax. Again, different companies have different culture, this and that. But end of the day, people don't beat around the bush here. You want to get to the point, and they respect that, they prefer that, than someone who is gonna try and be polite, try and hint at the point, which is what India is a little bit more, nuanced in.
Okay, so you did mention when you move abroad, you're expected to do everything independently.
Not
That
everything.
definitely would take.
Not everything, but a large part of it, yes.
Yeah, okay. So definitely there will be a lot more than we're used to, and it will take a large portion of our time. So I want to ask, how can students maintain a balance between these academic goals and also working towards their career aspirations, especially when it's so competitive?
The sad answer is there is no balance. If you're trying to look for balance, at least in the 2 years or a year that you're doing your master's, maybe master's is not the right thing for you. I'm just being very frank here. If you're looking for, hey, I'm going to have, again, everyone has different reasons why they do masters, right? Some people just do masters because they want to come to the US, not for education, not for anything else. But trying to distill this down to people who really care about the education and their career, this and that, there is no balance. You have a year, you have 2 years, make the most of it. Spend 14 hours studying, I don't know, 6 hours job searching. I'll give you my example. My course was just like a year at Berkeley. I landed in August. By September, I had started to look for jobs. By December, I had my job. While I was also trying to do a degree in applied math, which was very different from what I had studied in SSN. So you asked me what the balance was. There wasn't a balance. That's it. I'll be very honest with you. There is no balance. You can try and pursue it. You can try meditating, if that helps. But at least for a year or two, I would suggest go all out. Take advantage of this time that you have in this new environment. Because as people tell you, the most cliche it sounds, you're not going to get those 2 years back. These 2 years are free reign. You can do whatever you want without failing. You can start to learn AI and be like, it's not for me. You can start to get into industrial engineering and be like, this is not for me. You can start portfolio management, stock trading. There are all these different things that you get exposed to once you come to the US or other countries. Take advantage of that. Don't seek balance, seek imbalance. Because, later on in life, when you're 35, 40 is when you want balance. Early on, you just want to be wild. Why not, right? You're not going to be able to get that opportunity later on. I don't know if that answered your question, but that is the reality.
Thank you for not sugarcoating it. I think it really helps us to be more mentally prepared once we know the reality. So that's great. Moving on. With technology and industries evolving so rapidly, what key skills should students focus on developing to stay competitive in the global job market?
That's a good question. I mean, it is, you guys are graduating at such an interesting time. I wish I was 10 years younger and would be graduating with you, but it is what it is. We are, as you know, I mean, you guys are no strangers to what's going on in the world with OpenAI doing ChatGPT and Facebook with their llama models and this and that. It is the advent of AI. It is the the tipping point where people are saying this is the next revolution in how jobs will be for the next 5 or 10 years. And that means things that we have learned in school, things that we have learned in college are important, but they are secondary to what the job industry or the job market wants. So I'll start with the most important thing right now, which is digital literacy. Which is going back, how do you market yourself? That's really important. So having a strong LinkedIn profile, you want to get really, really, creative there. But also something very popular now is prompt engineering, which is If you look at ChatGPT, I'm assuming you guys are aware of ChatGPT, right? It's not something which is alien. Is that fair to understand?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
good,
think
good.
we're all familiar.
Good, good. I'm sure. Maybe some of the assignments have been helped with that. I will wish Alvin sir wasn't here. But my point is, prompt engineering is really important these days, especially in software engineering roles, in creative roles, in roles that require research. The most important thing companies look for, like I said, is how can I solve the problem in the most quickest, efficient manner, right? And that in the past, or at least 3-5 years ago, involved you having a very strong fundamental knowledge, being able to leverage that, being able to find information from different things you've learned, connecting it all together, and then building that model, building the solution. Now, the connecting the dots piece is all being done for you by somebody like an AI, right? Or not an AI, but at least a large language model. I shouldn't call it AI. So how can you be, with the fundamentals that how can you be creative in asking the right questions to get the right answers becomes really important. And I think teams and people are looking for that skill now. So I want to start with digital literacy is I think one of the most important skills right now. Beyond that, again, depending on the kind of job or life you want beyond masters, I think some level of technical skills obviously is important. And when I say technical, I'm not saying you need to be a pro at fluid dynamics or thermal mechanics, but fundamentals of data analysis, fundamentals of statistics, fundamentals in programming are somehow become very normalized. And it wasn't the case for me when I came to the US. I didn't need to know programming. I didn't need to know statistics in depth. But now it's become more of a basic requirement. Like you need to know some of these things to be successful. So if you're not from a field of engineering where this is normal, you have to be a little bit more proactive. You have to take on a little bit more workload and learn how to do these things. And then the third most important thing beyond networking, which is I think the most important thing of all, is soft skills. What you will see is that someone who has a lesser profile or not as impressive a profile, but can market himself or herself verbally or in a written communication better, will probably have the edge over some. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, you can.
You can let me know if this is intentional, and we can call it a day. I'm kidding.
It's okay. We only have left.
I will wrap it up really quickly. I think beyond that, soft skills is very important because in my experience, and I've recruited a ton. If you're able to present yourself really well, which means you're able to speak to yourself, speak about the world in an intelligent manner, speak about the recent industry trends in an industrial in a good manner, in an informed manner, you're probably going to get an edge over someone who's really smart, really mathematical, but can't speak to it. So there are a lot of avenues available probably in SSN and beyond, but being able to verbally communicate very well, being able to write about yourself, write about things in an intelligent, concise, precise manner is important. And one thing in long term that will help you, not just professionally, but personally as well, is building your EQ, building your emotional intelligence. Because as you grow in your career, I think you'll get to manage teams, you will be in hard situations. So how do you balance that stress of things going around you with the emotional aspect of things becomes really important. The most important leaders like Tim Cook, Zuckerberg, maybe not Zuckerberg, they are very emotionally intelligent people. They're able to not just get the best out of you by pushing you hard, but they're able to get best out of you by being emotionally smart and inspiring you to do things. So yeah, maybe that's later in life, but for now, focus on networking, focus on communication, focus on digital literacy, which I think are the key skills in the next 3 to 5 years that you will need.
Okay, so we're on to our last question, and it's a little personal. So, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced while studying abroad, and how did that shape your career trajectory?
I want to go back to the first thing I said, and maybe want to go to the next slide because I think that's kind of ties to it to a certain extent. Everyone's journey is unique. I kind of keep saying that. I can tell you all about my challenges, and I had to stay hungry for 3 days. I didn't have to. I'm just kidding. But and that inspired me to do this or talk about Ratan Tata, sadly one of the pioneer who just passed away, his journey and how inspiring it was. But sure, it will help you. Will give you some data points, but I don't know if that really truly will help you on your own path. I think it is important to realize that everyone has a different timing. Everyone has a unique skill set. Everyone has their own ambitions and things. And I think if you look within, look at the challenges you have faced, use that and leverage that. I think that's more important. My journey was not any different. I thought, looking at my seniors, that, oh my God, they have such a great life. How did they get there? Let's talk to them. And I did get to learn a lot by talking to them about not their challenges, but things like what they focused on, what they didn't focus on, what mistakes they made, and that helped me a little bit. So if you ask me what mistakes I made, and if that helps you, I can go into that, which is I wasn't proud of my own achievements. So I didn't market myself really well when I came here. I was shy to a certain extent. And one big thing which I want to make sure I leave you with is I wasn't as ambitious as I am today. And part of the problem is showing up, or part of the solution is showing up. And I kid you not, since I've been on the other side of the table now, I've done recruiting for Apple, I've done recruiting for Berkeley. A lot of people who are smart, who are intelligent, they get discouraged by competition. They get discouraged by the lack of ambition, and they don't even apply to places like Stanford, Berkeley, because they think it's too difficult to get into. It's a dream thing. Why will they choose me? Get rid of that. Don't worry about why they will not choose me. Think about why you are good enough for that. Half the problem or half the solution is just applying. So be ambitious, be zealous, be shameless. And I think that is mistakes I wasn't. And I hope that you don't repeat those mistakes. So, that's one thing I will leave you with.
Okay, thank you for that, Suneesh. We'll be opening for questions again. I think a few people have already asked questions. Shall I read them out?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jay Santya is a student from EC department. Okay, and they say, if I want to get a job abroad, what should I do? And give some important qualifications to get a job abroad.
Could you repeat that? Sorry, you said, what are the ways to get a job abroad?
Yeah, and some important qualifications.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm assuming you're saying getting a job abroad from India, right? And I think I would say, I'll repeat what I said before, is work for a company that has an onshore office in the US. I think that is the easiest and the most straightforward way for someone to transition from India to US, Germany, what have it. Unfortunately, like you sitting here applying for a job in the US is you're going to have a very low. There is, you not saying no to it, but maybe 1% chance. Instead, work for a company. My wife works for ZS Associates. They have a lot of offices in India, and a lot of people in those offices started working in India, in Delhi, in Pune, in Bangalore, and then they moved here. That's a very popular path. So think of those avenues. And how to get into these companies, it's research. Like figure out which of these companies there are. Talk to me, talk to my associates, my friends. We can obviously put you in touch with the right people. But the skills they require are no different from the skills that one might hire for in the US. I will still look for compelling communication. I will still look for how ingenuous you are, how smart you are, how can you speak about the world, and not just, if you can solve Bernoulli's equation. So keep that in mind.
Okay. Next question is, how was the shift you took from mechanical engineering to the field you wanted? Could you elaborate a bit more on your journey on that aspect, like the skills, knowledge, prerequisites for that field, etc.?
You're talking about my grad degree, operations research? How I moved? Is that what the question is?
Yeah, I agree. How you took, yeah, how you went from mechanical engineering to the field you wanted.
Got it. Got it. The field I am in right now, just so everyone's clear, it's got nothing to do with mathematics now. Which is why I said everyone is on a unique journey. Mechanical engineering, I felt after graduating that I'm a bad engineer, but I'm good at explaining engineering. When I did engineering, I felt that there was something better for me, and that led me to believe that I need to pivot. But I could not pivot, completely. I could not go from mechanical engineering to law, for example. So there are limitations of what I can or couldn't do. And that's what led me to, okay, I want to look for something which is a little bit more universal, which if I want to pivot to finance, for example, or if I want to pivot to supply chain, I could still leverage what I know, but still be able to have that option available. And the field that opened up, that was the answer to all this, was operations research, which, if you have not heard of it, is basically applying the principles of optimization, applying the principles of vector algebra, linear programming, into real world problems. Like, how do you solve for Apple's supply chain? How do you solve for impossible logistics problems? How do you solve for optimizing LLM models? It's, at the end of the day, very simple math equations. And that's how I chose OR. But once I did OR, I got into math. I loved it. I worked on math things for 2 years, and then I was bored. I was like, hey, I don't want to do math all my life. I wanted to get into leadership roles. I want to manage people. I want to inspire people. I want to lead teams and do cool things. Then I was like, okay, where can I leverage what I've already done, which is manufacturing, mechanical engineering, math, into a leadership role? And that's when supply chain came as an avenue. So it's all about looking back, connecting the dots of what you have done, what you can leverage into new and open areas. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to all my life have a career in supply chain. Maybe 5 years down the line, I'm bored of supply chain, but how can I leverage supply chain? How can I leverage leadership? How can I leverage math to do the next big thing? So that's how I think about problems, and that's how I think I encourage people to think about things too.
Okay, Suneesh, how many more questions can we take? Just checking.
I want to say maybe 5 more minutes, if that's okay.
Okay, fine. Okay, we know the next question. They ask about non-computer aligned engineering courses like chemical, biomedical, and civil, especially higher studies in abroad. I believe they want to know about the scope, I think.
Yeah. Again, I'll give you no sugar-coated answers. Civil engineering is not a very popular field in the US. You may want to look at other geographies, not US, for that. Primary reason being the job market here is already saturated with people who have done civil engineering here. And typically, to get jobs like in the architecture firms and in these firms, you require heavy technical impetus, which again, there's a lot of people already here. So I want to encourage you to look at other geographies. Biomedical engineering, on the other hand, and chemical engineering, a lot of scope. There's a lot of pharma companies here. There's a lot of cutting edge research going on in those fields and drugs, and companies like Pfizer and Enron are like quite big here. So there is scope, I want to say, but the number of jobs that are available in these fields compared to what you might find, let's say, in software engineering is definitely less. So don't get discouraged by this. But the point is, if you are, sort of bent on, hey, I want a career in chemical engineering, or I want a career in biomedical engineering, there are avenues. If I want a career in civil engineering, there are avenues. But the way I think about it is, when I was our age, I also had dreams like this. I also wanted to be a mechanical engineer. And then I got into it and I was like, maybe this is not for me. So what I took away from my engineering, what I took away from my master's in some of these, is the fundamentals: critical thinking, problem solving, basic data analysis. And that, I think those skills are common in all these degrees. So how can you extract that common knowledge and then use that to a job that you think maybe later on you're useful? I would focus more on that. So go to a chemical engineering degree, Get into the depths of the engineering aspect of things. Look for jobs in Pfizer, and hopefully you'll get it. But don't get discouraged if you don't, because you have a lot of these important skills that are required for other jobs that you could leverage in and move on there.
Okay. Do we have time for one more question? Or,
One last question.
Yeah. Okay. So they would like you to share how you ended up in Apple.
It's a good question. About 7 years ago, I was approached by Apple by a director who had worked with me in my first company that I had started off. They were a very senior person back then when I first met them, but by some stroke of luck, they thought I was intelligent, and they thought that I had exemplary skills, which were important for the job they were hiring me for at Apple, and that led them to believe that I would be successful. So, networking is not networking, and also being marketable is part of the reason I am at Apple. Now, Apple does have a pretty grueling interview round, so it's not just networking. You got to have some fundamentals as well. But again, the simple answer is I was just, in the right place, met the right person. They liked me. I marketed myself well. I made sure I kept in touch with them even after they left my company. That extra effort paid off at the end. So I think that's, as you look at the third point on the slide here, your network is your net worth, at least for the first 20 years of your career. After you're 20, network will follow you. But at least the first 20 years, your network is what will drive you forward.
Okay, thank you, Suneesh.
Yeah, I'll leave you with one thing though, Krishna. I think for everybody else, I think the second point here and the last point here, what I've discovered through pain and everything else in my life is whenever I was in a very comfortable portion of my life, I didn't grow as much. I plateaued, and that made me sad. That made me question my own worth. You should never question your worth. Everyone is unique and important in their own way. They have their own journey. That's number one. But if you have ambition, if you really want to change the world, or at least be in a company that's changing the world, or make a lot of money, you cannot be comfortable, at least for the first 20 years of your career. You have to be in a period of pain, because without that, it just wouldn't happen. I'm just sorry to say that. Like you can blame me later on, but it won't happen. You have to be uncomfortable. And I think the last thing is, when you're uncomfortable, don't wait to take your first step. I could have applied for Apple right out of college. I didn't, because I felt I wasn't good enough. Goes back to my whole ambition piece of it. But had I applied to Apple, I'd probably been a lot senior now. I would have been a lot more money now. So take the first step, even if you don't have all the answers. Clarity, really, nobody has all the answers. Nobody knows when you start a new company, when you get into a new job, nobody knows how to do it. You'll figure it out over time. Focus on that. Clarity does come from action. It's not premeditated. Nobody knew, Zuckerberg didn't know he was going to change the world by starting Facebook. It's a very cliche thing, but he was just making a website where, you could just connect with your friends. So nobody knows how it's going to work out. Take the first step, be uncomfortable. That's the most important thing.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Suneesh. I believe you mentioned 2 times that we're all here on Saturday night. Yes. I also like to mention that you're also here on Saturday morning, which I think is an even greater thing. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everyone who's attended.
Yeah,
I hope this has been a good session for everyone. And,
yeah, Suneesh,
thank you,
it's really great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Suneesh, for your time, and really the best outgoing student of SSN 2012. Surely he's doing great globally too. Happy to see that. And in this festival season, even the students you are here to guide the students, and students are also students. We should not say you are 10 years, a decade junior, you can say, of Suneesh Kaul. Good. Nice to be really a very good insight to all the students, and many all are from different years, second year, third year, final year. Definitely it will help them to build their career. Thank you, Suneesh, once again.
Yeah, I hope this was valuable, everybody. And again, like you've already taken the first step. You're already uncomfortable spending your Saturday night here. So you're already on the right path. Good luck, and feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, digital marketing, be shameless, and you never know what might click. All right. Good luck, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you.